Welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going deep on something that I think you'll find really interesting. We're going to be looking at Delhi's private residential colonies.
Okay.
And specifically, what we're kind of looking at is like, imagine an entire neighborhood getting a makeover.
Right.
Not just like for looks, but for safety, livability,
Yeah.
and a stronger sense of community. And it's all right here in these excerpts that you sent over.
Yeah, it is.
Let me tell you.
It's a fascinating topic for
Yeah.
sure. These colonies, a lot of them were built decades ago.
Right.
And they have a unique charm, but they're facing like some big challenges.
Yeah, and it's not just like they need a fresh coat of paint.
Right. Yeah,
Oh, see,
exactly.
like we're talking about, the excerpts really highlight this, like potential fire hazards,
Yeah.
electrical systems that are, from another time, and even like structural vulnerabilities. And this is in a city, we got to remember, Delhi sits in an earthquake-prone zone.
Oh, absolutely. That earthquake risk is
Yeah.
a major concern. If you're living in a building that's not designed to withstand those kinds of forces, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And you know what these excerpts really stress is how urgent it is to address these risks. It's not just like, oh, this is an inconvenience.
Right.
This is a serious threat
Right.
to safety and to people's well-being.
Exactly. And it's not even just about fixing individual homes.
Right.
It's about the whole ecosystem of these colonies.
Yeah.
The excerpts paint this picture of just a daily traffic nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Like imagine rush hour, but it's every hour.
Yes, all the time.
Narrow lanes.
Right.
Limited parking.
It's a recipe for chaos.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, and I think what that highlights is that redevelopment can't just be about fixing the houses. It has to be about the bigger picture. The roads,
Yeah.
public spaces,
Yeah.
even like fostering that sense of community.
So wider roads.
Wider roads.
Designed for today's traffic.
Oh, yeah. Designed for the way people drive today.
Designated parking.
Absolutely. Got to have a place to put all those cars so they're not clogging up the streets.
Right, yeah. And then those lanes that are opened up, you could have, pedestrian walkways.
Right.
Maybe even bike paths.
Encourage people to get out of their cars.
Yeah.
Walk, ride their bikes.
So we're talking about more than just making the houses prettier. Right.
For sure.
We're talking about quality of life for everybody.
Exactly.
I'm picturing well-planned layouts,
Yeah.
green spaces, maybe even some of those, amenities that you see in the newer developments, like gyms, pools, community centers.
Right. And, that's where I think the whole concept of a well-planned housing society really comes in,
Yeah.
It's not just about like luxury,
Right.
It's about creating this self-sufficient environment within the colony.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If you could walk to a park without having to dodge traffic,
Right?
if your kids could play outside
Yes.
safely,
Yeah.
and you had a sense of belonging
Oh, yeah.
and connection, that's really the heart of it,
Absolutely.
That's what these well-planned societies are all about.
And the excerpts even touch on the whole security aspect, too. Like
Right.
gated communities,
Right.
controlled access, which, for a lot of residents, especially families, I bet that's a huge selling point,
Oh, yeah.
peace of mind, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, feeling safe
Yeah.
and secure in your neighborhood.
Especially in a big city like Delhi.
Right.
Yes.
It's essential.
But all this sounds amazing, right?
Oh, yeah.
But let's be real. Redevelopment on this scale, it's got to be tricky.
Oh, it's a huge
Yeah.
undertaking.
The excerpts even highlight some pretty big hurdles.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You've got to get all the residents on board with this.
Oh, yeah.
You have to work with the local authorities.
Right, yeah.
And then there's the whole money thing. The funding for a project this big, it could be daunting.
It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, right?
It is. It is.
You're not even sure if you have all the pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? That brings up a great question.
Yeah.
And I want to pose this to our listener.
Okay.
What do you think is the biggest challenge to actually making this happen? Is it convincing people to go for it?
Getting everybody on the same page.
Or is it working through all that bureaucracy and red tape?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because both of those are such
huge challenges.
And I think it's something to really think about
Oh, absolutely.
as we keep going deeper
Yeah.
into this whole topic.
Because, at the end of the day, it's not just about the buildings and the roads and the stuff.
Right.
It's about people.
Yeah.
Their lives, their homes, their sense of community.
The human story, right. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think as we go deeper into this, that's what we're going to be exploring.
Yeah.
looking at these potential solutions
Right.
and really unpacking that human side of this whole urban transformation.
It's going to be fascinating to see where this goes.
I think so too.
So buckle up, everybody, because we're diving deep into the potential, the challenges, and the human stories
Yes.
behind reimagining Delhi's neighborhoods.
It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, right?
Right.
But these excerpts you sent, they don't just focus on the problems, right?
Right. Not at all.
They actually offer some really interesting, potential solutions.
Yeah.
They talk about transforming these areas into, well-planned housing societies, which sounds kind of utopian, right?
It does sound a little idealistic.
Yeah.
But I think the excerpts get into, some real specifics about what that could actually look like.
Yeah.
Instead of this maze of narrow lanes and kind of haphazard construction, imagine organized layouts, where the buildings, the green spaces, even the shared facilities, they're all strategically placed.
Okay.
It's about making the best use of the space, creating this harmonious flow.
Right.
And really thinking about the needs of the whole community.
Yeah.
Not just individual houses, but how everything works together.
So it's taking the best of modern urban planning
Yeah.
and applying it to these existing neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So instead of those cramped streets with cars parked everywhere,
Right.
you'd have wider roads
Right.
with designated parking.
Yeah.
And then those lanes that are opened up, you could reclaim them
Yeah.
for pedestrian walkways,
Yeah.
bike paths.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a game changer right there.
Yeah.
Not only does it make the traffic flow better, but it's safer.
Right.
And it encourages a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure.
If you can walk to the store, walk your kids to school.
Right. Or just walk around the block.
Yeah. To get some exercise.
Exactly.
It totally changes the feel of a neighborhood, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And speaking of changing the feel, the excerpts also mention incorporating amenities.
Okay.
The kind of things you might see in fancier housing developments. So parks, playgrounds, clubhouses, maybe even gyms and swimming pools.
It does sound kind of fancy, I'll be honest.
It does.
Yeah.
But I think the point here is that these amenities, they're not just about status.
Right.
They're about contributing to that sense of community and well-being.
Okay.
So a shared gym, it encourages a healthier lifestyle. A playground gives kids a safe place to, run around and be kids.
Yeah.
And a community center, that becomes a hub for social interaction.
Okay. So it's not just about
Right.
having fancy stuff.
Yeah, it's not just about keeping up with the Joneses or whatever.
It's about giving people a place to connect.
It's about bringing people together.
Yeah. Creating that sense of we're all in this together.
Right, like a mini city within a city, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where you have everything you need.
Right at your doorstep.
And the excerpts, they also touch on the whole security aspect too, right?
Oh, yes. Security is a big one.
Yeah.
Things like gated communities,
Yeah.
controlled access, CCTV surveillance.
And I bet for residents, that's a huge draw, especially for families, right?
Absolutely. I mean, feeling safe in your own neighborhood is fundamental. Yeah. But what I find really interesting is that the excerpts also talk about preserving the existing character of these colonies
Okay.
while still modernizing them.
So it's not about erasing the past.
Right, exactly.
It's about finding a way to blend the old with the new.
Yeah, it's about respecting the history of these places.
Yeah, so maybe instead of demolishing those older homes,
Right.
you retrofit them with modern safety features.
Yeah. Upgrade the electrical system.
Make them more energy efficient.
Exactly. Bring them up to code.
Right.
But still preserve the architectural charm of the original structures.
So it's finding that sweet spot
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
between honoring the past and embracing the future.
Absolutely. And, even with all these great ideas,
Right.
the excerpts are really clear about one thing.
Okay.
The residents have to be involved.
Okay, so it's not just about...
It can't be a top-down approach.
Yeah.
Where somebody comes in and says, this is how it's going to be.
Right.
It has to be a collaborative process.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You have to engage the residents.
Yeah.
Understand their
Really
needs,
takes a turn.
their vision for their community.
Because people are more likely to embrace change when they feel like they're part of it,
Exactly.
not just having it dictated to them.
Right. And I think that can be messy.
Oh, yeah.
Getting everyone on the same page,
Right.
managing different opinions and priorities.
Right.
But that's where, good communication and collaboration come in.
Yeah, you got to create those platforms for dialogue, right?
Absolutely. You have to listen to different perspectives
Right.
and find solutions that work for the majority.
While still respecting individual concerns, right?
Exactly. It's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah, and for our listener who might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but how would it actually play out?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think it's important to highlight that the excerpts suggest a phased approach.
Yeah, a phased approach is key.
You don't want to overwhelm people with too much change all at once.
Exactly. You have to break this massive undertaking down
Right.
into smaller, more manageable steps.
So maybe you start with, like, the most pressing safety concerns.
Right. The things that are most urgent.
Right, and the infrastructure stuff.
Get the foundation right.
And then maybe you move on to creating those green spaces.
Yeah, and those community hubs.
Like building a house, right?
Exactly.
Brick by brick.
Yeah, you start with the foundation,
And then you add the walls and the roof.
and then you do the finishing touches.
And as each phase is completed,
Yeah,
it creates a sense of momentum.
right.
It builds trust.
And it shows people that this is actually happening.
That it's not just talk, right?
Exactly. It's about demonstrating progress,
Right.
showing tangible results.
Yeah.
And that inspires more investment and more participation.
And as we go deeper into these excerpts,
Yeah.
we'll see how these concepts could actually be applied in a real-world scenario,
Right.
turning those what-ifs
Yeah.
into this is how it could work.
Exactly. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty
Yeah, the detail.
and see how this vision could become a reality.
All right, so we've painted this pretty exciting picture
Yeah.
of what these revitalized Delhi neighborhoods could look like. Safer, greener, more connected.
Yeah.
But these excerpts, they don't shy away from the challenges either.
Oh, no, they're very upfront
Yeah.
about the hurdles.
Like we talked about before, funding is a big one.
A huge,
Redevelopment on this scale, it's going to take a ton of money.
yeah, it's a massive investment.
And the excerpts, they only kind of briefly touch on some potential sources
Yeah.
like public-private partnerships,
Right.
government incentives. But
Mhm.
even with those options,
Yeah.
it's going to take some serious financial maneuvering.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, just think about setting up those partnerships,
Right.
all the paperwork,
Yeah.
all the bureaucracy
Navigating all the red tape.
to get those incentives,
So-
the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah,
Where you're not even sure you have all the pieces.
exactly.
And then there's the whole regulatory side of things, too.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about potentially overhauling existing zoning laws,
Right.
building codes, maybe even property rights.
Mhm.
That's a lot of red tape to cut through.
It is. And it's not just about cutting through it either.
Okay.
It's about creating a whole new framework.
Yeah.
That's clear.
Transparent. Yeah. And ensures that everything is fair and equitable for everyone involved.
And then on top of all of that,
Right.
you can't forget about the human element,
People.
the residents themselves.
Absolutely.
Even if you have all the money and the legal framework,
Right.
you got to get the people on board.
You got to have the community behind you.
Change can be scary.
Oh, yeah. Especially when it comes to something as personal as your home,
Right.
your neighborhood.
Yeah. People might resist letting go of those familiar ways of life.
I mean, it's understandable, right?
Yeah.
People get attached to their routines
Yeah, they might worry about being displaced or seeing their property taxes go up.
or losing that unique character of their neighborhood.
Right. That makes it special.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
That's why the excerpts really stress how important it is
Okay.
to keep the residents in the loop.
So it's about more than just telling them what the plans are.
Way more.
Yeah.
It's about actively involving them in the decisions.
Getting their feedback.
Absolutely addressing their concerns.
Making them feel like they're part of this whole process.
Right, like partners.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the success of this whole thing hinges on whether the residents are willing to embrace this new vision.
And that brings us back to that question we asked our listener before.
Yeah.
Out of all these challenges,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is the biggest one?
Is it the money?
The regulations.
Or is it the people?
It's a tough one. I
It
know.
is. There's no easy answer.
But I think these excerpts, they do a really good job
Yeah.
of presenting this holistic picture.
Right.
They lay out all the complexities, the potential pitfalls,
They don't sugarcoat it.
but they also highlight the amazing possibilities.
Yeah. They really spark a conversation.
They make you think.
Right.
Absolutely. They challenge us to think critically about the future.
About the kind of cities we want to live in.
And they remind us that even though this is really complicated,
Yeah.
the potential rewards are huge.
Yeah. And that's what makes this whole deep dive so valuable, right?
It is.
It's not just about the technical stuff. It's about the human side of it.
The hopes,
the
the
fears,
dreams.
the aspirations of a whole community.
Yeah, and for you, our listener, we hope this has given you some food for thought,
Yeah.
a new way of looking at how our cities are changing.
And maybe even inspired you to get involved.
Yeah.
So next time you're walking around your own neighborhood,
Mhm.
take a look around
Yeah.
and ask yourself,
What could be better?
what kind of future do we want to build?
And what role can I play in making that happen?
That wraps up our deep dive.
Into reimagining Delhi's neighborhoods.
We hope you found it insightful
Engaging.
and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.